Hey guys, how's it going? This is Kevin Ehsani, and this is the Progressive Experience podcast. And I am here with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got some interesting stories I want to get to today. But first, I'd like to just let everybody know to please check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/progblacksmith. That is the website where you can donate, or you can become patrons for me, and you can donate money to me if you feel like I'm doing a good job doing these podcasts, running my Facebook page, on Twitter, whatever it is. Your charity would be very appreciative if you could do that for me. And I also have a Facebook page. That's facebook.com/progblacksmith, twitter.com/progblacksmith, and I will leave all the rest of the links at the bottom of this, in the description of this video. So if you guys could check those out, I would really appreciate it. And we are just going to get to the first story here. So there was a segment that MSNBC did. When was it? It was actually earlier this month. So it was earlier this month of November, and it had and I don't watch a lot of MSNBC as much as I used to, and this segment had millionaire, billionaire, really rich guy that donates to the Democratic Party. So he's a donor for the Democrats, and he gives them a lot of money. He bankrolls them for their different PACs and their different, campaigns and their different candidates and all the, basically the loyalists that are there for the Democrats, essentially. And so he was on MSNBC, and he was basically giving a warning to the Democrats and telling them, "Listen, you better fall in line, or else, I'm going to be pulling my money. I'm going to be pulling my funds." But I don't want to give it all away. This is an audio clip from the segment here. Why don't you listen to this, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Is set to meet with top White House officials, including Gary Cohn and Mark Short, to discuss tax reform. Joining me now, Chairman and CEO of Diamond Resorts, a good friend of mine, Stephen Cloobeck. Mr. Cloobeck was. The last time you and I spoke, sadly, it was right after the shooting in Las Vegas. Here we are, 2 days after a shooting in Texas. The last thing you said to me was enough is enough, and here we are back with another shooting. So
enough is enough.
Enough is enough. I hope you're watching, Mr. President. All right. You're a massively successful business guy. You're a major donor to the Democratic Party. What is your take on this bill?
Well, it's misguided, because to get rid of state and local tax relief is a major hit to most Americans. Major hit. Specifically in New York and California. And if you put New York and California together, it's like the 5th largest GDP. It's dumb. This is a big corporate tax bungle.
Shouldn't you like that? You're a rich guy.
No, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to end up paying more taxes. But it's not, I'm arguing for this because it's not proper. They should go after net operating loss carry forwards. Then give kids relief for student loans. Don't hurt the kids. How can you hurt the kids?
Why do you think this is the Republicans' approach? I mean, when you look at cutting corporate taxes, you're not actually getting rid of any loopholes, so they're going to continue to use all the shelters. They're going to continue to use every trick in the book. Cutting the estate tax, the argument that they're trying to make that it's going to help the middle class, do you see it helping the middle class anywhere here?
I think it's a far reach. And, if you're going to help the middle class, let the kids get relief for student loans. Give the kids help. Let them go to school. And to just give the corporations all these tax cuts and not getting rid of net operating loss carry forwards is insanity. It's crazy.
Keeping carried interest for private equity firms, keeping carried interest for real estate firms, that's just President Trump hooking himself up. But are Democrats going after it in the right way? Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who think President Trump is morally reprehensible, but they think, I want my taxes cut, I'm going to vote with him. And when Democrats continue to say, down with the billionaires, we can't stand the rich, a lot of people want to be rich. So is it the right message that the Democrats are going with?
It's so effing wrong.
Whoa.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billionaires again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational. I didn't start with anything. Just penalize everyone that's done well. We all want to do well. And we should be the party of doing well. We should be a party of business and leadership. And it is very, very disturbing when I hear the millionaire or billionaire word. And I've told them to stop it, knock it off. Because everyone wants to do really well. And this is the world of aspirations.
Then are you worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left?
So much so, it drives me nuts. So much so, it would make me quit the party. And I've made it very clear, I'll cut your money off. And others will do the same. We've had enough.
Okay,
we need a new brand.
And what is that brand? Because right now there is an opportunity. If Democrats lose, for example, in the state of Virginia, if that isn't a wake-up call that the Democratic leadership needs to get together and say, we've got to find a middle ground. Because if the Democrats continue to go far to the left, you've got that whole group in the center that aren't going to go the way of Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. And then you're going to fracture the party even more.
It's fractured. It's broken. We need a new brand. It needs to be simple. Keep it simple. Tax reform, keep it simple. Infrastructure, no bumps in the road. What more do we have to say? They need to have a new brand created.
Is the Democratic Party in worse shape than Republicans?
They're both insane.
But at the end of the day, like them or not, as I said earlier, there's a lot of people that don't like President Trump, but then they showed up and voted Republican. Are we going to see Democrats pull it together and vote together? A lot of Bernie supporters did not turn and vote for Hillary. They just didn't vote at all.
I know, and I can tell you that if we go far left, I'm out. I'm out. We need middle ground.
So when you tell the Democratic leadership this, when you meet with Wyden and Pelosi and Schumer, what do they say to you?
Well, so far they've given me great signals that they're willing to participate and get there. We shall see. We shall see.
Do you think this tax plan is going to get voted through? I mean, Republicans need a win here. Even if it doesn't work for their state, if Paul Ryan doesn't get this through, he's got no future. They will have no legislative wins for 2017.
Well, they have a lot of difficulties. They are very, unfortunately, bigoted, anti-Semitic, and caustic, and they're creating civil war.
They want to create a civil war. Steve Bannon wants a civil war.
100%. It's disgusting.
Okay.
And you wanted to talk about gun control? Get rid of the assault weapons. Get rid of them.
Then, Steve, tell me this. If it's bigoted, if it's anti-Semitic, if it's caustic, why is it winning?
Good question. A sad state for us.
Then what needs to be done? You need to run for governor of the state of Nevada?
No.
In short, what needs to be done? Like, here we are on the eve of tax reform.
We need people getting together in a room and be moderate with one another. We need to get along. We need to be able to speak and get things done. And we need compromise. Compromise.
Okay, then just answer me this before we go. I understand why the forgotten American, why Trump's base said, I want to break the system. The system isn't working for me. When Trump said, hasn't worked for you for 30 years, why not vote for me? I kind of understand that. But you're a big casino guy. You're a Vegas guy. You're surrounded by Steve Wynn, Sheldon Adelson. If the party is bigoted, anti-Semitic, caustic, why are they backing it?
Ask them.
I ask you, you know them. What's your opinion?
Maybe they're confused. maybe they're confused.
Maybe they're confused.
But look, I'm just as caustic and arrogant and aggressive on the Democratic side. So, Trump-esque, Trump-light. But I'm willing to fight for democratic principles. And I'm not going to give up. And hopefully we'll get our shit together.
And in your mind, the Democratic Party does stand for the American dream, and it does stand for free markets, and it does stand for capitalism, good capitalism.
Correct. And I hope we can get those messages out.
Good luck to you. My friend Steve Cloobeck. Always great to have you visit. Up next.
You're lovely.
Much more on today's big election as you can follow the latest news on.
All right. So this guy is an absolute clown, in my opinion. He keeps threatening Democrats and saying like, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to be out of here. Well, get the fuck out of here then. Nobody's asking for you to be around here. Nobody's begging for you to be a part of the party or, as far as a donor in the party and giving money to the Democrats. I mean, maybe the Democrats want it because they're just like the Republicans, just like most politicians, they're so hopped up on all the donations, they're obsessed with it. But I guarantee you, majority of the people, regular people out there, not the politicians, regular people want nothing to do with you. Want nothing to do with what you have to offer. Want nothing to do with what you're giving us, which is basically just a bunch of talking points and scare tactics. And well, you better do this, or else I'm going to be out here. Or we got to be more moderate. And what was the other thing he said? He said something about how he says I can tell if we go far left, I'm out. We need middle ground. And he says we got to be moderate. Like, does this guy even know what moderate is? To this guy, moderate is no, we have to give, huge tax breaks to people like me because I'm a rich bastard. I'm a rich motherfucker. So I need all the tax relief in the world because I'm just being taxed too much. So like this guy, he's just constantly portraying himself as the victim. And this is the guy that's a serious problem in this so-called democracy that we have going on in this country. He's making everything worse. He's not helping this country become a democracy. He's not helping the Democratic Party. The Democrats may think he's helping. He may think he'd be helping, but he's not. And he goes out there and he says, "Oh, I'm in favor of gun reform and stuff. All this gun reform is so bad." Okay, he may think that, but he's not doing anything to help that. So what is he going to do? He's going to go compete with the NRA. The NRA is one of the biggest, if not the biggest donor to the Republican Party, along with the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, all those people. But the NRA is up there. The NRA has the Republicans in their back pocket and even some members of the Democratic Party. But you're never going to beat the NRA. The NRA are always going to be better than everybody else. So, if you want to try and, take down that giant, it's good luck to you. It's not going to happen. But as far as what's going on regarding the donors for Democrats, if he wants to get the hell out of here, then get the hell out. Nobody wants you. Just move out of the way. You're in our way. You're in our way. You're not leading it to any progressive policies or progressive ideals being pushed. You're creating more corporatism. You're creating more problems. You're making the country, let alone the party, more beholden to corporate cash, which leads to less populism and, just more elitism, essentially. We don't need all that elitism. All that elitism is what's ruining us, and I don't know, this guy either hasn't figured it out or he thinks that, Democrats can be, I don't know, Democrats, I guess, whatever his idea of a Democrat is, while still selling out to corporations and selling out to, big donors and stuff. That seems to be his mentality. So he thinks like, oh yeah, you can still be Democrats, but you can also sell out and, pull that off somehow. It's complete bullshit. And I can't even stand the guy's attitude. He acts like he acts like another version of Trump. He acts like he's like the Democratic version of Trump, not the liberal version, the Democratic version of Trump. He's acting like, oh, look at this, I'm a straight shooter and I'm shooting from the hip and I'm going to tell you how it is, and I'm going to look at him cussing and shit, saying, yeah, they need to get their shit together. And, you know, they're so effing wrong. Like, just stop being so fake. It's obvious the guy is, it's obvious he's putting on a show to get attention. He's trying to curse and be all, be all, you know, off the cuff and, you know, I don't know, caustic, as he called it, just so he can get attention. That's not really who he is, though. Like, you can tell. And anytime you see people acting like that, especially about, like, especially these elitist types and politicians too, similar to Trump and others out there that are like that, yeah, you can tell it's fake. You can tell they're putting on an act so they can either get attention, or maybe, you know, or maybe that's what they have decided to all of a sudden become just so they can get the attention. But it's not real. It's not really who they are, because they're always trying to be all like, they're always trying to be like button up and, you know, proper and, you know, how do you do? And, you know, chip cheerio, and, you know, I need to be all proper like it was back in the day, you know, like, no, it's totally fake, and I can't stand these people. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know why anybody takes them seriously, but I mean, I guess that's what it's come down to, as far as you know, as far as certainly with MSNBC, you know, loves to take these people seriously. MSNBC sees them as, you know, sees them as somebody that they can suck up to, essentially. So yeah, that guy's name is Steve Cloobeck. Who knows? We'll probably be seeing him again at some point, but he's been mocked all over Twitter. He's been all over Twitter, you know, yelling at everybody. People are yelling at him, and he's just making a fool out of himself, just like he did on MSNBC. So, I mean, if he wants to go out there and represent the Democrats, good luck. The Democrats are only going to be getting worse with popularity. They're only going to be getting more unpopular if he's around, as if they're not already getting unpopular as it is. So, let's see here. So we've got another story here. This is an article from Caitlin Johnstone. She is an independent writer. She writes on Medium. She has her own column on medium.com. She wrote an article here regarding WikiLeaks. So the title of the article is The Atlantic, which is a publication. It's a mainstream publication. The Atlantic commits malpractice, selectively edits to smear WikiLeaks. So WikiLeaks is obviously the organization that's run by Julian Assange, who released a lot of he released all the Podesta files and Podesta emails and stuff that uncovered a lot of what Hillary Clinton was saying, basically, or doing behind closed doors. And this information was all put out thanks to WikiLeaks. And so ever since then, and I think even prior to that, I would say, it wasn't being followed as much before, but certainly since the Podesta files were put out, the mainstream media has definitely gone out of its way to try and smear WikiLeaks as much as possible. They've definitely tried to make them into this boogeyman, into this, you know, kind of like scary whatever outfit that's aligned with Russia. That's why they get all the you know, Russia hacked the elections or whatever. So the evidence of that is the fact that, is the fact that WikiLeaks released the Podesta file, and then they say that somehow aligns them with Russia. It's complete bullshit. It's not even real, but it's propaganda that's made up just so they can scare people and convince people about how bad WikiLeaks is. So the story that Caitlin Johnstone does is she talks about how The Atlantic released an article which got a lot of attention. The writer Julia Ioffe, I think I'm saying that right. I think I'm saying that correctly. Ioffe. She wrote this article. It was published on The Atlantic, and it got a ton of attention on Twitter, a ton of attention all over the place. And let me get you the exact title here for Ioffe's article. The article is titled "The Secret Correspondence Between Donald Trump Jr. and WikiLeaks." Now, apparently, Donald Trump Jr. and Julian Assange, the founder and editor of WikiLeaks, had a conversation through, I guess, private messaging, and they talked about how Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, wanted to release Donald Trump's taxes. They want to release his taxes before anybody else would, and there was a conversation that was had between Trump's son, Trump Jr., and Julian Assange. So that's where he told him, we want to publish the emails before any other news organization does it. And they talked about this. They said it, they kind of, I don't know, they kind of had a conversation about it and said they're going to, that Assange wants to do it. And now everybody is making a big uproar about it. Everybody's getting all, oh my God, I can't believe it. They had a conversation that was private. And these are the same people that don't give a shit about the fact that Hillary Clinton's people were having private conversations with journalists and everything, which was uncovered by WikiLeaks. But then when WikiLeaks has a conversation about disclosing Donald Trump's emails, all of a sudden it's like a big uproar, and everybody needs to freak out, and everybody needs to go into DEFCON 5 because God forbid WikiLeaks did something to get everybody's attention. In reality, it was a conversation about releasing taxes, and the problem here is that and the thing that Caitlin Johnstone's uncovering is that the way the media, so in this case Julia Eoff, the way the media portrayed the releasing of the conversation between Donald Trump Jr. and Julian Assange was taken a little bit out of context and made it seem as if something shady is going on behind closed doors when it really wasn't. So Donald Trump Jr. after the article, I think, came out. Yeah. After the article came out, what was it? It came out around 1:23 p.m. on November 13th. On that same day, Donald Trump Jr. Tweeted out the full conversation that him and Julian Assange had, and he showed how there was only three. He says in the tweet, he says, "Here is the entire chain of messages with WikiLeaks, with my whopping three responses, which one of the congressional committees has chosen to selectively leak." How ironic! And then he has a couple of other tweets, but that seems to be the most. Yeah, that seems to be the most relevant. The most relevant tweet that Donald Trump Jr. puts out, and he basically puts that. He basically claims that their conversation wasn't really as much as people make it out to be. It wasn't really this huge revelation that everybody makes it out to be. So in the article, Julia Eoff says, so here's the editing part that Atlantic took part in and kind of did that at least in this case, Caitlin Johnstone is pointing out. So it says, so here's the part from the article. Here's the part of the article from Julia Eoff's piece. It says, "It is the third reason, though," WikiLeaks wrote, "that is the real kicker, quote unquote. If we publish them, it will dramatically improve the perception of our impartiality." So this is quoting WikiLeaks in their conversation with Donald Trump Jr. So WikiLeaks explained. So that's what WikiLeaks explained. So she's basically quoting WikiLeaks here. She says, "That means that the vast amount of stuff that we are publishing on Clinton will have much higher impact because it won't be perceived as coming from a pro-Trump or pro-Russia source." So as Johnstone explains it here, the way Eoff ended the sentence there, she just said it was like a full stop. That was a full stop, and the sentence just ended. When in reality, if you read the actual passage between Donald Trump Jr. and Julian Assange, he actually goes on to say more. So he actually says the actual full context of the piece is, if we or at least the section where Julian Assange responded to Trump Jr., he said, if we publish them, it will dramatically improve the perception of our impartiality. This is the real kicker. That means that the vast amount of stuff that we are publishing about Clinton will have much higher impact because it won't be perceived as coming from a pro-Trump, pro-Russian source. And then this is the part that Eoff leaves out and Johnstone points out. She says, which the Clinton campaign is constantly slandering us with. So basically what Julian Assange is saying is that the fact that if WikiLeaks were not to release the emails, then they would get attacked as being, as they would get attacked as like, oh my God, this, WikiLeaks is obviously pro-Trump. They are obviously anti-Clinton. They're pro-Russia. So they're obviously not going to be releasing, Trump's taxes. So, basically WikiLeaks, what they want to do is they want to create a realistic sense of impartiality by saying, listen, we want to release your father's email, saying this to Trump Jr. We want to release your father's emails so that we're not showing that we're being biased towards one side or the other. We want to show Trump, for example, we want to, as we did, we want to release Hillary's or at least the emails from John Podesta that had correspondence between Hillary's, campaign people and Podesta. And then on the other side, we also want to release Trump's emails. So it was basically, a conversation between the person that, that the emails would be coming from, as well as the person who would be releasing the emails. Now, again, if you want to compare that to, what the Hillary camp did, they also had a situation where they were obviously they were doing the whole thing where they were having correspondence behind closed doors, and they were talking to, whether they were talking to journalists, whether they were talking, they were showing Podesta talking to different people in the Hillary campaign, so having conversations with everybody. So this is the same exact thing. WikiLeaks having a conversation with somebody from the Trump campaign and telling them, we're going to release, in this case, your father's emails, and we're gonna make it full disclosure, just like we were gonna make it full disclosure with Podesta's emails. So it's the same form of disclosing. This is journalism. This is what you do with journalism. You're disclosing information. Now, whether you're doing it from an organization that is kind of under wraps and not really out there in the open. It's not like a literal publication which writes articles and stuff. They release information, and that's perfectly fine. That's the job that WikiLeaks does, and they're proud of doing it, and they should be proud of doing it because they really do a good job of it. So yeah, so basically, the case that Caitlin Johnstone is making here is that this is journalism. This is journalistic malpractice, because what you're doing is you're specifically taking a passage of a piece out of context, and you're leaving it out so that you can make the person that you're obviously trying to frame in a bad light, and you're trying to make them look worse. And of course, all the entire, anti-WikiLeaks, anti-Trump, all those anti-Assange people, they came out and said, oh my God, how could this be happening? So tons of people, they all, tweeted out, they said, this is terrible, blah, 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 they shouldn't be allowed to do this. and so on and so forth, as usual, with their melodramatics and their getting outrage and this and that. I mean, it's not really anything different from the usual stuff from the basically Hillary supporters. I would say majority, I would say 90%, 80 to 90% Hillary supporters. Maybe some Bernie supporters out there, who knows. But those are the Bernie supporters those are mainly the ones that are going to be them, and also much farther to the left, Green Party and stuff, supporters that are going to be in support of WikiLeaks and what they do. So, and then in the article from Jon Stone, she points out how Julia Eoff says, my bad. There was more passages between Donald Trump Jr. and Julian Assange and blah blah blah. But the attack was already made though. So you already attacked Assange. You already attacked WikiLeaks. You already made them look bad. Even though they didn't really do anything to make themselves look bad, you made them look bad by taking them out of context and portraying them as something, portraying them in a way, even though they didn't deserve to be, portrayed that way. And so the damage has already been done. So you just saying, "Oh, my bad, my mistake, I didn't mean to do that." Like you already did it. You can't just take it back like that. Everybody already hates, everybody that you're, all the people that you're getting the attention of already hate WikiLeaks as it is. So you're just, confirming for them what they already believe, which, and that's just another terrible form of, journalism that I personally can't stand. I can't stand it. That's why I never go to these. Never go to these publications. I never take them seriously. There's nothing to take seriously. They're just all propagandists, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's just kind of how it is, and it just kind of comes with the territory. WikiLeaks, as much as they don't deserve to be attacked, it kind of comes with the territory for them to get attacked, and it doesn't even really matter because they maintain the trust that they have among the, I would say, progressives and certainly libertarians and other people on the left side of the spectrum, that always maintains that they haven't done anything, deceptive or wrong, or they haven't lied to anybody, for them to lose the trust of anybody. So I know I always trust them. I don't really mind the whole idea of this agenda or that agenda, anti-Clinton, not anti-Clinton, anti-Trump, not anti-Trump, whatever it is. To me, WikiLeaks is anti-establishment. They are against the establishment. They are exposing the establishment. If you look at what a lot of people don't know, but look what they've done. They've uncovered a lot of stuff coming out regarding the elections in Catalunya in Spain. So they uncovered a lot of information there. They showed a lot of videos on Twitter and social media showing the protests and stuff. They showed support for the protesters that were in Catalunya when they had their election and when they had their, their situation where they were basically attempting to overthrow the government. And they exposed that government for the shady things that they were doing. And then, but everybody in America wants to act like they're like the devil. Like, God forbid, they expose the, Hillary Clinton. That's apparently that's the last straw for anybody. So, let's see what else. What other stories we have here? So we have an article here from CNN. This is from just roughly about a week ago, and it talks about all the about a problem that continues to persist with the DNC, and it's the DNC's fundraising woes. According to this piece, the title, which is titled "DNC's Fundraising Woes Continue with Worst October in 15 Years." Now, it was the same situation last month, so September as well, if I remember correctly. September, they had very bad fundraising numbers as well. Those were low, and apparently these ones are even lower than. So this October one is even lower than the September one. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. It's just in a nosedive right now. So I'm going to read you a piece, some parts of this piece, which is very interesting. So It starts out with the Democratic National Committee's fundraising woes continued last month when the party posted its lowest total for the month of October in at least 15 years. The DNC raised $3.9 million in October, far short of the $9.2 million raised during the month by the Republican National Committee. So that's nearly three times more that the Republicans have raised than Democrats. The RNC has now raised $113.2 million over the 2017 calendar year, and has $42.5 million in the bank and no debt. The DNC, meanwhile, has raised $55 million this year. It has $5 million in cash on hand and owes $3.2 million in debt. So that's pretty horrible. Those numbers do not look good. It was the worst October for Democrats dating back to 2003. It says the first year the national parties were required to file monthly finance reports. So that was 2003. That was the first month that they were filing their finance reports. It says the low totals reflect the difficulty that the DNC has had raising money since former President Barack Obama left office. It says the Democratic fundraising struggles came in the month before the party notched its biggest victory since President Donald Trump took office, easily winning the governor's race in Virginia and New Jersey, and picking up state legislative seats around the country. Other Democratic organizations, including the party's House and Senate campaign arms, have broken their own fundraising records, particularly with online small dollar donors. But the DNC under new chairman Thomas Perez has remained a source of friction, with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' backers, including Our Revolution, the political organization that grew out of his 2016 campaign, remaining critical of its role. Then it talks about how Donna Brazile came out with her book and tipping the scales in favor of Hillary, rigging the primary, and so on and so forth. Talking about the Unity Commission. Okay, so there's not really much to say here. I mean, in the sense, the article pretty much says it all. As far as what I think on this matter, I think it's pretty obvious. The DNC is in complete shambles now. One point that the article did mention there is that the House and Senate organizations that are so the DNC's the Democrats' House and Senate organizations that are raising money, those are doing fine. So when it comes to House and Senate seats, those are fine. But I guess it just shows that nobody really trusts the Democrats as far as the party, the Democratic National Committee. And when you have, but that's the thing. That's obviously, it's obviously good that the Senate, so the Senate and House, whatever apparatuses are doing well. That's a good thing. At least it's not, all throughout. But as far as how the Democratic Party is doing, that's where all the money comes from. That's where all the money is, distributed out to the different states. So and then the state parties themselves have money, but they get their money from the national DNC, the main DNC chambers, essentially. And the fact that it's doing so bad, that's really bad news. It should be panic time for these people at this point. And the fact that they can't seem to be reversing any of their fortunes, even with Donald Trump in office, even with how badly he's doing. With such a horrible president, currently in office right now, with his approvals being, I think, in the low 30s, I believe it's 31 or 32. Democrats are not much better. That's the problem. Democrats, Hillary Clinton, so the last person to run for president on the Democratic side, she's around the same point as he is. I think she's actually even lower than Trump is. And the Democrats are around that same point too. So, but that shouldn't even be the case. You should be doubling him. You should be tripling him. Maybe not tripling, but you should definitely be doubling him. If you're not 10 or 20 points ahead of Trump as it is as a party, So you're not ahead of the current president in office, let alone the party's apparatus, that party's apparatus, so the RNC. If you're not ahead of them, then you got some serious issues. I mean, you need to be, Thomas Perez, I don't even, when the announcement was made for Thomas Perez to become the head of the DNC, I never really understood it. I think they honestly, and it was President Obama who thought of that idea. He was the one who came up with that idea. And honestly, I think he just pulled it out of his ass. I don't think he really thought that one through. And he was just like, oh yeah, Thomas Perez, I know him really well Thomas Perez was the labor secretary under President Obama for, I think, the entire 8 years. At least for 4 years. Certainly at least for one term. And he was the labor secretary for Obama. So to Obama, in Obama's mind, he's thinking, well, I might as well add the person that I know the best, the person that I know really well. He was in my administration. He, did a really good job with labor secretary, which is, by the way, completely different than what you're doing for the DNC. I mean, I just don't think that Thomas Perez was ready. I don't think he was prepared for this job, but he kind of just took it as a favor to Obama. And that's why I heard, and as many people have heard, that Thomas Perez is actually, he's working, I think, as a professor. He's working as a professor at some university. I forgot what the university is called. I didn't really pay attention to that news and at the moment it happened, but I do remember it coming out. I was just like, I just thought it was hilarious, and I wasn't very surprised by it. It was just kind of like, all right, well, this is what you would expect. Basically, what the DNC gets now is a part-time employee, is a part-time, chair of the Democratic Party. I mean, and this is fresh off of, Donna Brazile being the interim chair. Before that, it being Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was a terrible chairman. She also was kind of like a part-timer because she was also in Congress. The best chair that the Democrats had in a while was Howard Dean. Howard Dean was a former progressive back in the day, and he came up with the 50-state strategy, and that's what won a lot of the seats in 2000. Certainly in 2006, leading up to 2008, and that's when Obama took over. So, and then obviously he was still in there in 2012 as well. Or maybe he wasn't there in 2012. I don't know, but he was definitely there for for all the success the Democrats have. Now Howard Dean, for those of you who don't know, Howard Dean is a complete sellout. He's not anybody that that any progressive should take seriously. He's basically a corporate tool now, and he's given in to a lot of the demands of the corporate donors, and he's doing what they say. So he's basically their errand boy now. I think he works for some lobbyist group or somewhere in Washington, which is not surprising because that's what a lot of the politicians who, even if they're not politicians, but a lot of the politicians, after they're done, they go and work, in Washington and basically make bank out of those jobs. Howard Dean is a former governor of Vermont, ironically, Bernie Sanders' estate. And he does not like Bernie Sanders for some reason. I don't know what his problem is. I think he thinks Bernie Sanders was responsible for Trump winning, which, is not surprising coming from the establishment. And that's why he is a member of the establishment. So, yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the party, Howard Dean and stuff, Thomas Perez, all these Democratic leaders, I guess if you can call it, in this case, they are leaders. All of them turn out to be fucking wackos. None of them you can take seriously. They're all absolute clowns, and Thomas Perez not even a year into being the chair of the party, and he's already a fucking joke. He's already a part-timer. He's not even a full-time chair of the party. If it was up to a lot of us, a lot of progressives out there, we would have preferred Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison was a very good choice. There was even another progressive who I think who had run into the Green Party, I think, before. His name was Samuel Ronan. He was also a very good guy. Nina Turner would have been very good. Tulsi Gabbard was the former vice chair of the Democratic National Party. She resigned because she wasn't happy with how the primary was being rigged in favor of Hillary against Bernie. So she got out of there as soon as she discovered all that stuff. And then when she got out of there, she essentially went and backed Bernie. And yeah, so I mean, a lot of this stuff is just kind of like, it's just like the party is just, it's falling apart. It's like a house of cards, you know. And when you are relying on corporate donors all the time, you know, you're essentially a house of cards. That's what you are, you know. You're like, you can't be taken seriously. You can't be no donor, no even voter can really take you seriously and be like, oh yeah, this is this is a party I really want to get behind. Like, imagine donating your money to the Democratic Party. Like, it would be a joke, because I mean, you would just be like, okay, well, I can't have any confidence in what this party is doing, what these candidates that they bring up are doing. I mean, they're all bums, and they're all, you know, they're not doing anything. I mean, they're all failures. We just lost, the worst race, you know, the biggest layup election ever in a race that we should have easily won against a buffoon like Donald Trump, and a reality TV host like Donald Trump, and if we can't even beat that guy, I mean, how is anybody supposed to have confidence in beating the next? So winning Donald Trump when he runs for re-election, or assuming he gets to his re-election and he's not impeached. But assuming you are supposed to face him, okay, so you face Mike Pence. I don't know, whatever. So that's another story for another day. The point is, Democrats are fucking horrible right now, and they're falling all over themselves, tripping up all over themselves. They have no idea what direction they're going in. The only institutions, or whatever it is, whatever you want to call them, on the left that are doing well are groups like Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, all these groups, progressive, real progressive groups, Democratic Socialists of America, you could even throw the Green Party in there. Those are the real groups that are getting somewhere, while the rest of them are just like, the rest of the Democrats and stuff, like, you can't even take seriously anymore. So, good luck with them. Good luck to them, because they need it. So, let's see. We've got a couple of Hillary Clinton stories to hear. Let me do one. They're two different stories, so they're not the same. One story is just about an absurd article that was posted on Salon.com by a writer named Matthew Rosa. And he basically... This was written, what was it, the day after? I think it was the day... I believe it was the day after Thanksgiving. It was the day after, so the 24th. So this article was written, I'm not going to read the article, I'm just going to explain to you what it is. I'm going to post the link on the description there, so you can check it out. But this is just another case of Democrats, certainly Democrats, Democratic loyalists, and faux liberals and faux... I don't know, just basically Hillary Clinton supporters trying to revive her career. You know what? I will read the titles. I'm going to read the titles. This person, the article that they wrote, they had a couple of titles that they wrote for, certain sections of paragraphs. So I'm going to read those out for you guys, but that's about it, because the rest, reading the whole thing is going to be torture, basically. But yeah, the article is titled, "Here's Your Leftover Turkey. The Case for Hillary Clinton 2020. Should be good. So the first basically the article basically starts out just, quoting Donald Trump, mocking Hillary. Okay, whatever. So the first part that comes up here, I guess it's the I guess it's the introduction to a paragraph. Essentially, it says, number one, Hillary Clinton is the Winston Churchill to Vladimir Putin's Adolf Hitler. Okay, that is the most absurd comparison ever. I don't know what this person is talking about. That makes absolutely no sense. I mean, first of all, Winston Churchill Hillary Clinton is not Winston Churchill. I mean, what has she done that she's Winston Churchill? I mean, that's absurd. It's absurd to even entertain that idea. But then you're comparing Adolf Hitler to Vladimir Putin. I'm sorry, Vladimir Putin to Adolf Hitler. I mean, come on. So okay, yeah, Vladimir Putin's a really bad guy. You're not saying anything that's anybody's gonna disagree with as far as Vladimir Putin being a bad guy. But he is not Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler killed he killed millions and tens and millions of Jews. But you're going out there and you're talking about how he's comparable to how Vladimir Putin, who hasn't killed nearly that many people, not even close. But you want to actually say he's comparable to Hitler? It's ridiculous. The next little paragraph starter here says, Hillary Clinton being elected president at last would monumentally piss off misogynistic trolls, and what's not to like about that? Oh yeah. Let's just get Hillary Clinton become president, and all the misogynism, all the misogynists are going to go crazy. Yeah. Because that's exactly what every single person who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton believes. That she's just a horrible bitch, and we just couldn't stand her. It couldn't have been the fact that she voted for the Iraq War. It couldn't have been that she voted for the Patriot Act, that she didn't support gay marriage until 2013, that she staged a coup in Libya. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? This is a woman who has a ridiculous record. She could never she could never get herself to support a $15 minimum wage. Do you want to go down the list? She voted against flag burning, which is part of the First Amendment. I mean, it's your First Amendment right to be allowed to burn a flag, American flag. And she was against that. I mean, come on. If the more and more you go down the list, the record of this woman is ridiculous. It's horrible. She was not a good representative for anybody, and she would not have been a good president. So if your only goal is to just piss off the misogynists and the sexists, then okay, great, good job. So and then what? And then you're gonna piss them off, and okay. So what? You think like if she would have became president, all of a sudden the rainbows and puppies would have emerged, and everybody would have gotten a pony, and everybody would have been happy, and we would have all been living in wedded bliss? No, that's not the way it works. And anybody who thinks that that alone, getting pissing off all the misogynists is going to fix all of our problems, I mean. That's barely anything. I mean, the misogynists are always going to exist in this world. Just pissing them off is not going to do anything. Just like if we were to piss off racists, it has nothing to do with it. It's not going to fix anything. So number 3 here. I don't know how many there. There's only 4 of them. Okay, so number 3 is, by winning the popular vote convincingly in 2016, Hillary Clinton has earned the right to be considered the presumptive nominee in 2020. Yeah, because that's how it works. So did you guys hear? Apparently, if you win the popular vote in one election, that means you are automatically you become the presumptive nominee for the very next election. Wow. I never heard about that. That's it's an interesting stipulation. I wonder if this person just made it up right out of whole cloth. They just completely made up that rule for everybody to follow, because Hillary Clinton, the great Queen Hillary herself won that, she won that popular vote. So that means that new rule has now been implemented, and we need to follow it. I mean, how can you take this fucking person seriously? This person is an absolute idiot. And obviously, when you look at the quality of articles that are written for Salon.com, it's not very good. So this is what you should expect from them. So, if you want to take that logic, then Al Gore should have been the presumptive nominee for, 2004. But no, that didn't happen. Al Gore moved on. He moved on with his life. He clearly won the popular vote by, more than 500,000 votes, or just around 500,000 votes over George Bush. Was he sitting there crying and whining and bitching and moaning about how he should be the nominee for the next election? No, you have to earn that. See, this just boils down to the typical, mentality of not only Hillary Clinton but her supporters, who think that no, everything needs to be handed to Hillary Clinton, needs to be handed to her supporters. We deserve this because we are supporting Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton is our option, and she is our savior. And if you don't respect her, you are, a terrible person, and you don't deserve to have a say in political debate. I don't know, whatever the hell the mentality is. But, basically they don't want to have anything to do with you because you're not, bowing at the altar to Hillary Clinton. And the final one here, this one makes a lot of sense. We can expect her to be a good president. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, Hillary Clinton would have been an amazing president. Yeah, because of course the person who voted for the Iraq War, what an awesome president. The person who is going around still, to this day, is still going around talking about how Russia is a threat, Russia is this, Vladimir Putin is a this, WikiLeaks is, aligned with Russia, which is basically the attitude being put forth that, even the free press, the outlets that are out there putting out information to all of us, those are like enemies of the state. That's basically what they've been saying. That's basically what the establishment, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, that's what they've been saying about not only WikiLeaks, they've been saying it about Edward Snowden, they've been saying it about, they even said it about Chelsea Manning. Poor Chelsea Manning was in prison for several numbers of years. She was originally going to be sentenced to 35 years, but luckily she got pardoned, and she got her sentence pardoned by President Obama, which was definitely one of the best things he did. But he was treated, as essentially as an enemy combatant because he exposed the crimes of the government, which happened under the Bush administration, But Hillary Clinton, yeah, she's wonderful. She would have been a really good president because she would have taken us into more wars. She would have taken us into having fighting wars with Russia because assuming she would have won regardless of Russia, quote unquote, hacking the election, she would have probably wanted to go to some sort of cyber warfare with them. I wouldn't be surprised by anything like that happening. I mean, considering how Hillary Clinton, has been acting ever since she lost to Trump, this is what I would have expected. Or at least I'm giving you an idea of what I would have expected, and it wouldn't have been any surprise for me. So, no, Hillary Clinton would not have been a good president. She is not the presumptive nominee in 2020. She does not deserve any of those accolades. She did not accomplish anything other than becoming at the most I can say that she won the primary, which she rigged the shit out of, but she won the primary. Okay, fine. She did not beat Donald Trump regardless of whether she won the popular vote or not. Winning the popular vote does not mean that you win the presidency. And we can have a discussion for another day as to why that rule should be changed or not changed, whatever. But that's not how you win the presidency. You knew that coming in. So all of a sudden, acting all of a sudden like, oh my God, I should have won the presidency even though I didn't. No, that's not how it works. So too bad. So another Hillary Clinton story here that we have comes from the New York Daily News. The article says Hillary Clinton defends husband and Al Franken blast President Trump and Roy Moore over sexual harassment. So basically what this article explains is that Hillary Clinton was at I think it was some sort of, let me see here. She chatted with the former secretary of the, let me just read this part here. It says, when it comes to allegations of sexual misconduct, Hillary Clinton sees a clear difference between Democrats and Republicans. The former Secretary of State chatted with WABC radio host Rita Cosby in a sweeping Friday afternoon interview centered on sexual impropriety in politics, fielding questions about GOP Senate nominee Roy Moore, President Trump, her husband, and Democratic Senator Al Franken. It says here, Clinton was quick to lump together Moore, who's accused of sexually harassing and assaulting several teenagers, with Trump, who's accused of sexually harassing more than a dozen women. She was also quick to extend an olive branch to Franken, her former Senate colleague, who's accused of sexually harassing a female radio host in 2006. Quoting her here, she says, he's a good friend. He's a good friend of mine, and I deeply regret what he did. There's no excuse for his behavior, but he has called for an investigation and apologized to the woman involved, Clinton said. Look at the contrast between Al Franken accepting responsibility, apologizing, and Roy Moore and Donald Trump, who have done neither. It says, she continued, there's a double standard. The Republicans deny, and divert. And they get away with it because the press is more concerned about somebody who accepted responsibility than people who refuse to take responsibility. There was also another part here. Apparently some comments were made by Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who is the senator who took over Clinton's seat when she left the Senate. And it says Clinton also pushed back against Gillibrand, who made headlines earlier this week when she said President Bill Clinton should have stepped down following his sex scandal involving White House intern Monica Lewinsky. Clinton says that was a painful time not only in our marriage but in our country. Clinton said, referring to the impeachment of her husband in 1999, but it was investigated fully. It was addressed at the time. He was held accountable. That is very different than what people seem to be remembering from that period. Contrastingly, Clinton was incredulous as to why Trump isn't facing the same scrutiny her husband did. It says, if you're going to hold people to the same standards, there are a lot of parallels that are not being followed in recent times, she said. Okay, so that's the end of that. So, for once, surprisingly, I find myself in somewhat agreement with Hillary Clinton here. As far as her specific point about how, about how Democrats and Republicans seem to take certain levels of responsibility for certain things, especially considering situations pertaining to rape and sexual assault and sexual misconduct. They seem to definitely take a lot more. The Democrats seem to definitely take a lot more responsibility, I guess, in this case. At least in these last two cases, compared to Republicans. But I mean, and that's fine. And, while Democrats, at least now they're confessing, it's not like they were always confessing to everything they did. But Republicans never really did. Republicans were always the one that were hiding these things, and they were talking about how, I never did this and I never did that, and I'm a good Christian man and I'm religious, and I don't have any secrets to hide against anybody. I'm not, I would never do something like that. So basically, Republicans go out there and they act holier than thou, and they like to portray themselves as like saints, and like nobody should be afraid of them doing anything wrong because they've, taken a vow to the Lord our God, and the usual stuff that they say. So they like to basically act like they're always innocent, and anybody who thinks that they're not innocent should know that they have taken a vow to God. And because you've taken a vow to this sky fairy in the sky, in the up in the heavens, that means that anything you do wrong, well, first of all, nobody should believe that you do anything wrong because you believe in God. Okay. And if you do something wrong, God knows whether you did that wrong. So you would never do anything wrong to begin with. So basically, God would know all the bad things that you're doing and that you shouldn't, and then nobody should be worried about what you may do, because you would never do anything wrong. So you can trust them, you can take their word and everything. Of course, that's not the case, because a lot of these Republicans have a record, have a history of essentially doing a lot of fucked up shit, a lot of creepy stuff that nobody can really trust them to be trust them to be honest, and let alone not being hypocritical, because a lot of them say, I am against gay marriage, and I am against incest, and I am against doing drugs, and doing all these terrible things. So I would never do that, and anybody that does it, should be punished by God, and they should be condemned for their actions. Well, as it turns out, a lot of Republicans out there have done things that are fucked up, that are immoral. Roy Moore being one of them, Trump being another one of them, another one being Larry Craig. Another one that I mentioned on my last show was Desjardins. Was it Scott Desjardins? Yeah, Scott Desjardins was a congressman who, he forced his mistress and his wife to get abortions, even though he voted several times against abortion when he was in the House. I think he was doing cocaine or something with his mistress. He got caught for that too. So fuck your morals, man. You got no morals. You're doing all the fucked up shit that you claim everybody else shouldn't be doing. And then Larry Craig was, I believe Larry Craig was having sex with a gay hooker, in a bathroom in like a New Jersey bathroom stall or something. I honestly don't know the details to that, and I don't want to know it, it's kind of irrelevant, the details of it. But yeah, he was basically caught doing a lot of the things that, he was obviously saying like, oh, that's terrible, how dare you do it, but then he was doing it himself. And that's just, two examples I can think of. The Roy Moore one, Donald Trump one, are two more. Obviously Trump said, grab them by the pussy, and then, I move on them like a bitch, and all this fucked up shit. And Roy Moore was, like I said on the episode last week, I actually detailed his case specifically, and I talked about how he was caught, he raped a 14-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl or something, and he was, going after girls that were under the age of 18 when he was only 32. So yeah, all that stuff. So, but as far as when it comes to a particular case with Hillary here, it's just a little convenient how she wants to condemn the Republicans and, go really hard on them. How dare you, you shouldn't be doing this, but then she forgives people like her husband. She forgives people like Al Franken. She basically she does her way to dance around those situations that involve the Democrats, because she doesn't want to condemn the Democrats, because she knows if she condemns her own side, that's not going to make Democrats look too good, and it's going to piss them off. So she wants to play Team Democrat the whole time. She wants to make sure she's playing on the right team, and she's not, stepping on anybody's toes, essentially. Because I guess in her mind, if she does do that, then she's gonna, then she's not gonna make her side look too good. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of typical Hillary. I'm not really surprised by anything like that. That's just kind of like a matter that you would. I mean, that's just a matter that I wouldn't expect Hillary to condemn Democrats on, let alone anything really. I mean, she's gonna play for that team. That's just how it is. Now she has a lot of Republicans that are friends. She's friends with John McCain. John McCain, I think he was caught for adultery or something, right? Didn't he have a child out of wedlock with somebody? I don't know the details of that one, but you know, she's not going out there condemning John McCain. So I mean, she's very selective in who she condemns and how she condemns them. So it's very interesting. Yeah. So I mean, that's just typical Hillary. Can't say I'm surprised. And that's just kind of how it is. So let's go on to the next story here. It's an article from Newsweek. And it talks about how Bernie Sanders, according to a lot of Democratic insiders, Bernie Sanders is the next person in line to face Donald Trump in 2020. So, you know, putting aside any primaries and stuff, a lot of the people within the party are under the impression that Bernie Sanders is going to be the next person to take on Donald Trump. It's obviously not based on any kind of mathematical calculations or anything. This is just people within the party that think this. And this is not from the politicians. This is from the insiders. It's from the specific strategists, people that have worked on campaigns, people that, maybe even have their own favorites. So let me just read different parts of the article here. So the title of the article is Bernie Sanders will face Donald Trump in 2020 election, Democrats say. The article is written by Nicole Goodkind. It starts out by saying the 2020 presidential election is Senator Bernie Sanders' race to lose, according to a new survey of more than a dozen top Democratic strategists. The survey, conducted by The Hill, reveals a Democratic field crowded with old faces. At a time when the party could use some fresh blood, most contenders for commander-in-chief have been around for decades. Sanders, who will be 79 years old in 2020, currently leads the pack. Quote, his people have never gone away, Democratic strategist Brad Bannon told The Hill. And he has a loyal core following out there that will be with him come hell or high water. Sanders is the most, and that's end quote. Sanders is the most popular politician in America, with an approval rating of 75%, according to a recent Harvard-Harris poll. So it just goes on to explain here that Bernie Sanders has been touring the country with Our Revolution, which is his super PAC, his organization, talking about Medicare for All, his Medicare for All bill, which has, I believe, 16 subscribers from the Democratic Party. It says he still considers himself a Democratic Socialist. And it also says other Democratic contenders for 2020 include former Vice President Joe Biden, which I mentioned on the show last week, Senators Elizabeth Warren, who I mentioned last week as well, Kamala Harris, Sherrod Brown, and former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick. I'm surprised Cory Booker isn't on that list. So yeah. And at the end of the article, it says, but overall, it's a weak field, said political strategist Phil Singer, who served as press secretary on Clinton's 2008 presidential run. You have a bunch of Celine Dion's, but there's no Beatles, he said. Okay. So my take on this is, yes, Bernie Sanders is an obvious front runner. I mean, that you would be stupid to not think he's going to be at least considered. He's going to at least be considered as somebody that's going to run, putting aside whether he's actually going to win or whether he's whatever. But he's definitely going to be one of the top people there. He not only does his popularity among his own constituents, but among the whole country, 75% is a ridiculous number. I mean, there's nobody. I don't think there's anybody within 10 points. Maybe 10 points. Maybe a little. Maybe about 10 points, but no closer than that. I would say There's nobody that's closer to him than that, I would say. But the general take that I got from this is, yes, Bernie Sanders is running. All those other people are probably going to run too. Bernie Sanders is definitely the front runner. But I think this is a little bit of a warning shot from the Democratic strategists and insiders and stuff. And these are people that are paid by the party to say certain things that the party leadership is going to want to hear, and they basically pay them to say certain things and make their whatever predictions that they little predictions that they want. In this case, I think what these Democratic strategists are doing is they are giving a signal to the establishment that, listen, Bernie Sanders is coming again. Bernie Sanders is definitely going to run again, and this is something I guarantee you this is something Bernie Sanders knows. Bernie Sanders knows that they know this. So Bernie isn't stupid. He's not going in there thinking, "Oh, I got this thing sewn up. No problem. I'm going to become the 2020 nominee, blah blah blah." That's not the case at all. But what he is doing is what they are doing is they're warning all these insiders, all these establishment types. They're telling them that Bernie is going to run. He is going to be in this race. He is going to be in this race in 2020. Everybody be warned. Everybody keep a lookout. Everybody make sure, keep your eyes peeled so you know that Bernie is going to run, so that we know, what to expect this time. Because what happened in 2016, in this past election, specifically in the primary, is nobody saw Bernie coming. They did not expect, A, they did not expect Bernie to run. B, they did not expect all the attention, all the fanfare, all the, crowds for him, the people that were supporting him. They did not expect him to come out for him like they did. That was completely unexpected. People were like the Democratic strategists and the establishment were completely floored by how much support Bernie was actually getting. And they basically, they had to basically, put together a bunch of, plans, a bunch of strategies to, combat him and fight against him. That's why they got the help of the media a lot to write hit pieces on him. They got the Daily News, or was it the Daily News? I think that did that interview with him, and they twisted his words, and then the Washington Post released 16 negative articles about him in 16 hours, and this and that, all this stuff that happened during the primary. And these are all things that the Bernie supporters and, the Bernie campaign certainly remember. So they know what to expect. The Bernie supporters are definitely the ones that are going to remember it much better, because they're going to be the ones who are going to be making sure it doesn't happen again in the future. So in 2020, certainly leading up to 2020. But they definitely want to put that signal out there so the Democratic establishment knows that Bernie is running, and that they can plan everything they want to plan as far as, what kind of, strategies and ideas and shit like that. All those kind of things, they want to decide those things that they can use against Bernie ahead of time. So if Bernie, let's say, is running against Joe Biden, let's say he's running against Kamala Harris, let's say he's running against Elizabeth Warren, who I think it's either going to be Elizabeth Warren or it's going to be Bernie Sanders. I don't think both of them are going to be running. Not winning, running. I don't think both of them are going to be running, because I think Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are too good of friends to try and one-up each other. But who knows? I mean, anything can happen. It's, 2-3 years from now. So anything can happen within the next 2 or 3 years. But generally, based on the fact that they are very close friends and they've worked each other on a lot of different policies and supported each other in each other's races and all that stuff, I don't see them going at each other in a presidential primary to run for president. So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. But all those other people, Kamala Harris, I think even Cory Booker is going to be thrown in there, Deval Patrick, for sure, Joe Biden, all those people. And those people are all definitely going to be in the race. They're definitely going to be considered by the Democratic establishment and the Democratic voters, definitely. And they definitely want to put that out there, man. They want to make sure that they see Bernie coming, and they see, they don't underestimate Bernie, essentially. Now, ironically, what the establishment on the Democratic side ended up doing is they ended up underestimating both Bernie and Trump. But with Bernie, for what it's worth, they did beat him, quote unquote. They cheated enough, they rigged the primary enough to beat Bernie. They did not obviously do that with Trump. With Trump, they definitely did not see Trump coming. And as many people know, they basically made, according to WikiLeaks, they basically they made Trump as the Pied Piper on the Republican side. They made him out to be this Pied Piper candidate. Him, Ted Cruz, and I believe it was Ben Carson. They made those three candidates out to be the candidates that the Hillary Clinton campaign I'm talking about here. They're the ones. Those three are the people that they made out to be the candidates that they would prefer to face. Trump being one of them. So it ended up being Trump. They definitely didn't want to face somebody like Jeb Bush. They didn't want to face Marco Rubio, John Kasich. These people that are more establishment types, that are much more polished. They're not as off the cuff a little bit, as I guess you could say. They don't have much of an anti-establishment streak going. They're just mostly going with the flow and stuff. Whereas people like Carson, Cruz, and Trump, those are all people that are, even though they are, in my opinion, are still establishment types in many ways, and Trump has definitely proven that he is like that, that they do have rhetoric that, pushes more of an establishment tone. I'm sorry, anti-establishment tone. So that was more, it was more of like that kind of stuff that they saw from those three, and they wanted to push those people as the candidates they wanted to face. So they were definitely making sure that was going to be, the people that they could have faced, so that they could could have beaten them easier. So, yeah, it's a really, it's a very sneaky, typical establishment move by these people to do these kind of things, because this is how they know they can get by without having to work too hard. So they just see, let me just get the easiest candidate to face, hopefully beating him or her, and then it'll be easier for me when I end up going into the general election. And these are the people they want to boost up, and these are the people they want to make out to be much more mainstream instead of the Jeb Bush types. So, I mean, it's smart in many ways, but if you're going to do that, you definitely have to keep your eyes peeled when the situation comes to where you're going to be facing this person, because they obviously did not take Trump seriously, and all they did was just attack Trump as a sexist and a racist and a crazy person, and he's so nutty, and he's all of his supporters are from the alt-right and the deplorables. Like, it was basically the same strategy they used with the Bernie Sanders. If many people don't notice, that's the same thing. That's the same exact thing the Hillary campaign did against Bernie Sanders and his supporters. They made them out to be crazy people, but of course on the left side of the spectrum instead of the right side. And in many cases, they acted like those two were the same, which was disgusting. That was disgusting in itself. But that's also what they did. So, yeah. So, but in this case, it's a whole thing of just making sure that putting out that warning signal, so that everybody knows that Hillary Clinton, that Bernie Sanders is running, so that you can get prepared to attack him and dig up dirt on him and come up with different attack ads and shit like that, instead of going out there and talking to the to the people and using a real populist tone. They want to make things more establishment, more of a tone of basically being sneaky, doing things behind closed doors instead of being real and being upfront with everybody. So of course they can't do that. So they gotta do everything behind the back door. And that's just typical Hillary Clinton. That's typical like it was before. It was typical Hillary Clinton. Like it's going to be in the upcoming campaign, in the upcoming election in 2020. It's going to be like the typical Democratic establishment. And don't be surprised if you see the same tactics that were used in 2016 to be used in 2020. All right, guys. So that is the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back hopefully next week. I will keep everybody posted. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to all of you. Don't forget to check out our. Of course, check out this page, facebook.com/ProgBlacksmith, Twitter.com/ProgBlacksmith. Also, don't forget to check out my Patreon page, and if you find it in your heart to give me to become a patron, and donate even the smallest amount of $1 would be great. I would totally appreciate it. Thank you very much. So if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate it. That is patreon.com/ProgBlacksmith. And